So similarly, it's about the inner confidence and inner self-belief. And I believe that the way founders and the investment ecosystems communicate will have also changed, so that someone pitching with a certain style is not in itself a guarantee for investment or not, but that we have more openness to different communication styles and so on, and so that the ideas and the founders have the ability to shine through, even if they don't fit what is the traditional mold now of a founder.
Yeah, and then VCs also have to start looking at, like, if it's not a white
Ah,
guy,
yeah.
maybe he can be capable or she can be
Yeah,
capable.
yeah. But I think there it's like, confidence doesn't not automatically mean competence, and the other way around, because we have different ways of being and different communication styles and expression, and there has to be more acceptance of that.
Welcome to Women Disrupting Tech. My name is Dirk Jan Hupkes, and on this podcast I give the women who work in tech the platform they need to inspire and empower each other. Join me on a journey into the world of entrepreneurship, funding, biases and role models to discover the strategies for success in the tech industry. In other words, how women can disrupt tech. Are you ready to listen? Hey, welcome back to Women Disrupting Tech, and thank you for tuning in to episode 114. So, what happens when women stop asking for permission? They raise their prices, negotiate their worth, and they build businesses that reflect who they truly are, not who others told them to be. In this episode of Women Disrupting Tech, I speak with Catrine Rhenberg, and she's the co founder of The Wealth Within Her. She helps women rethink the stories that they've been told about money, risk, and confidence. From being told to be careful as a girl to learning not to speak up too much in meetings, these messages tend to stick around. And Catherine shares a process to shift those beliefs. She also shares what happens when women start defining wealth and success on their own terms. So, when you're ready to listen and learn how the wealth within her empowers women's finances and self worth, please welcome to Women Disrupting Tech, Catrine Rhenberg. Hey, Catrine. Welcome to Women Disrupting Tech. Good to have you. Question I always ask at the start is how you got into your current role. And floor is
Thank
yours.
you. Thank you. Great to be here. I'm really excited about our conversation. And how did I get to my current role? Well, my background has been always in payments and fintech. Throughout my sort of career, I started off actually at eBay, so the first few years, but from eBay I went into PayPal, and then I stayed within the payment and fintech space. And now what I do, I'll just explain that and then explain how I did the transition. Now, since about a year, I work as a payment consultant, so working with payment companies as well as running the platform, The Wealth Within Her, together with my co-founder. And that's I guess, the main focus today. And how I got into that was really looking at myself and talking to other women in career, but also having, done entrepreneurial journeys and realizing how much we were limiting ourselves in our careers and in our endeavors, both privately and professionally. So that's how we, together with Rika, started the platform, The Wealth Within Her, really to look at women's relationship between self-worth, money mindset, and financial measures of success, both at the individual side, but also on the entrepreneurial side.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, how is that different for women? Do they look I mean, money is money, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
And
But what
payments are payments.
what we look at a lot is the relationship that we see between self-worth and net worth. So the fact that we believe that a lot of how we relate to money and success is programmed basically from early childhood. I mean, how our relationship with money comes a lot from what we experience, both as men and women, from childhood, what we see in our families, and so on, and that those patterns are then repeated as we go into adulthood. But beyond that, what we also see is that society, and that's society at large, but also parents, teachers, etc., still treat girls and boys differently, and that in turn translates again into how we behave as adults. And let me just give you a couple of quick examples. There are a lot of studies that show that. Well, one study in particular, I think it's from 2017, from the published in the Journal of Pediatrics, that showed that parents of young kids between 1 and 3 will caution girls more against taking physical risks than they caution boys. So then boys tend to become more self-reliant and confident that they can do things, whereas girls then start thinking, oh, I have to be careful, I can't do this on my own. Same thing with teachers helping girls more than boys when they struggle with a task in school. That's also something that we see from research. And then society, I mean, there are still, I was in Amsterdam actually recently and went into the big Primark shop close to the central station and just looked at the t-shirts that were, more targeting girls or boys. And the boys t-shirts said things like explore, and the girls t-shirts said things like smile, um, love. And that's still today. I mean, that was 2 weeks ago in Amsterdam. Those are the messages that, girls and boys are literally, wearing. And I believe that that has a very strong effect on self-confidence, self-worth, agency that we develop, and how that then affects a lot of things in adult life.
So, would it be fair to say that women feel less agency, more dependence on other people?
Yeah, I believe that's one part, and also that they become more, yeah, so the dependency and the need to ask more for permission, to seek external approval before taking action. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think of it that way, to be honest. But you you're Swedish, right?
Yeah, correct.
You grew up in Switzerland. So how did that influence your own upbringing and your own look at self-worth, at money, at asking for permission
Yeah.
or agency?
So in Sweden, I mean, we have two things that is kind of ingrained in society.
Mhm.
um, One which we call jantelagen, or it's a concept, and the other is a word called lagom, which is just about right. There's no real translation for
Mhm.
the word, but both of them, I think, have very strong influence on society as a whole. That you should not think that you are more than anyone else, and
Mhm.
you should not strive to be better than anyone else. And I think that that obviously affects women and men. But
Mhm.
if we go back to what we said a little bit earlier about girls having the tendency to, maybe more than boys, seek external approval and make sure that they fit in. So
Yeah.
as a girl, you tend even more than to absorb these societal norms of fitting in, of not doing more, of not sticking out. And I think that that had, for me, I think, a big impact on wanting to be good and do right, but not doing more. And that has sort of also, I think, yeah, subconsciously impacted me in not maybe pushing for promotions, etc., in my career as well.
So it hampered you in your upside.
Yeah,
It
I would say
limited
so.
you in your upside.
Yeah.
So the thing that came to my mind is it sounds really almost egalitarian.
Hmm.
But from what I know is that, let's say, role patterns between men and women in Sweden are much more equal, and in Nordic countries in general, I think, much more equal than, let's say, if you go to the south or even to the US, for
Hmm.
instance. So there is also an upside, I would say. Do you
Yeah,
agree?
I agree. Absolutely. I think that there is a lot, especially when it comes to parental leave and,
Mhm,
the ability for both parents to take time off to be
mhm,
with their children. That is, you know, encouraged and accepted widely in Sweden as a society. Even, I would say, to some extent now in the startup world, and for entrepreneurs, I know of male entrepreneurs in
mhm,
very early stage startups who do take time off for being with their children. So yeah, absolutely, that is a positive side of it.
mhm,
um and I think the other side of, I mean, that has kind of maybe come out of that. I said, we're limited in not wanting to stick out, but the possibility to share parental responsibilities, for example, I think that is also helping some women to also feel that they can take time for other things as well, potentially like starting businesses and so on. They don't have that full heavy responsibility of being more or less the only one caring for the kids, which is a
yeah,
big additional responsibility on top of work, which doesn't give you much time to start thinking about entrepreneurial ventures and so on. So I think that is definitely positive.
yeah. It gives a lot of, or a lot, but it gives you some headspace, I would say.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah. Because I mean, where I am now in the wealth within her, about the care gap, there are so many different gaps, anything from gender pay gap to authority gap, confidence, but also the care gap, which is the fact that in most societies and countries, it is the woman who takes the brunt of the responsibility of the unpaid care work for children,
mhm.
other family members, etc. And that is more equal in Sweden, and I think that gives the opportunity to pursue other interests and ventures potentially.
Okay. So before you worked in eBay, in PayPal, and other startups, I was wondering what made you make this shift towards the wealth within her, the financial empowerment part. What triggered that?
I think one big part was self reflection. I
Mhm,
actually looked at myself and specific events in my life
mhm,
and realized how much money I had left on the table by being a woman. And it wasn't, because I was spending money on makeup or sanitary products. It was actually because I wasn't confident enough to ask for things that I, now looking back, believe I had a right to. For example, negotiating first salaries. I mean, women in general tend to not negotiate the first salary to the same extent that men. I didn't. I was happy to get my first job.
mhm,
And then, I have other specific events around stock options that I didn't ask for, even though they were in my contract, because I thought I need to prove myself first before I ask for it. And so I did that for myself and realized, okay, there's actual real money left on the table. And then I had conversations with my co-founder and a lot of other women around me that I had worked with or who were in my social network, who were doing the same things. I mean, I have someone I'm working with right now who was saying, "Well, I will not ask for a pay raise this year. I'll wait till next year because my nanny was off for a few months last year, so I wasn't, fully committed to work. I need to prove myself first before I ask. And I believe that, again, that is something how we've been programmed,
Mhm.
and it's not to our advantage. And I wanted to bring that to more women's attention, and not just women, but to society at large.
Yeah. So how can we change that? I mean, the patterns I recognize. I've heard that quite a lot now. Um, on the negotiation part, women also tend to get punished if they start to negotiate like men do,
Yes. Yes.
like playing hardball.
Yeah.
So there's a whole thing of, yeah, let's say societal norms and biases that comes with that territory. But how can we change uh, the way we the mindset of women, and b also the societal acceptance of the change in behavior, because I think we're in a shift, in the transition phase towards that moment that we start to accept that. But I see a lot of, and I hear a lot of resistance.
Yes. And I mean, to your point, yeah, women get quote unquote punished for negotiating, which is sad in itself. But I'm not also pushing women to be like men. I'm just pushing women to be more authentic to who they are themselves. And I think, to answer your question, one is awareness, both on the women's side and on the rest of society,
Mhm.
realizing that we are all behaving according to, programmed behaviors and biases. So taking the space and time to question how we behave and where those beliefs come from, I think is super important. And starting so the awareness comes from starting the conversation.
Mhm.
And that's a big part of what we're doing with the wealth within her. I
Mhm.
mean, we focus on, as I said, women in career, and then also on the startup ecosystem. But for women in careers, we run our wealth circles, which is just a safe space to talk about money and definitions of wealth and self-worth. And I hear so many times, especially when you talk about money, which I believe is only obviously one part of wealth, it wasn't talked about when these women were growing up, and often still women don't talk about money. So just creating a space, talk about money, to talk about self-worth, I think is important on that side. And then it extends into, okay, well, how can we then define or become more confident in our own value to then be able to negotiate, for example, a salary because we believe we
Yeah.
deserve it.
Yeah, because this has to do a lot with worthiness.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So then I was wondering, how you look at it. How do we avoid that younger women, let's say, who are in maybe universities or in school right now, that they make the same mistakes, that they run into the same issues? Because you're I'm using air quotes here. Um, you're fixing or helping, let's say, women who have who are in a career,
Mm,
helping them become more self-confident.
mhm.
How do we teach that to younger women and girls,
Yeah.
especially because I think that's if we want to avoid the patterns repeating in themselves, you have to break them somewhere.
Absolutely. And I sometimes hear, when I have conversations with people, like, yeah, but that has changed now. There is a belief that things have changed, that they are different. But the example that I gave you with
Mm,
the t-shirts,
no.
that's right now. So
Yeah.
girls, between the ages of 5 and 15 right now are still getting the same messages.
Yeah.
And I think it's super important. And the PISA, study, which is this big study by the OECD, they question 15-year-olds around, how confident they are and well prepared for day-to-day situations. And there we see that the 15-year-old girls questioned last time, I think was in 2022 or 3, are less confident when it comes to money matters and managing finance and so on. So it is very much a real problem still today for the younger generation. But I think so a couple of things: when you do create awareness at our level and
Uh,
at our age,
yeah.
it ripples down to our children. I mean, I'm the mother of a daughter. My co-founder is the mother of 2 daughters. So we have many more conversations also with our own children. And I think it's super important to look at financial education for kids. And there's a lot that's happening around that now, financial education, but the link between financial education and self-worth. Um, and yeah, and we work also with some, have conversations with neobanks and other initiatives that work specifically with kids.
So there's two things I want to double click on. One is just continuing this part. What is the difference in messaging that you have towards your daughter versus what you've been taught yourself?
Yeah.
What's the biggest difference?
Versus, so we talk a lot about money
Huh?
with my daughter, which I we didn't when I was growing up. And so, creating the awareness around what money is,
Huh?
how to, so that's more like the practical confidence. But I think
Huh?
that is important, the practical confidence that she understands how to deal with money, the fact that she needs to budget if she wants to buy something that
Yeah.
is uh, more expensive, etc. And of course I talk about that with my son as well, so we have an open conversation around how to deal with money, etc. And then I think my biggest thing that I try to do with both kids as well is I don't praise them for being good, I praise them for their effort. And again, I think that for me is different from how I was brought up and how I believe girls tend to be praised for, you know, yeah, doing the right thing
Uh-huh.
rather than for their effort and for trying and so on.
So how does that then impact behavior? Do you see that? That because she's trained differently, rewarded on effort rather than on execution and on outcome.
Mm.
Do you see different results already? I don't know how old your children are, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. My daughter is 11, turning 12. I think one thing I also related to that
Uh,
is, which I do see, is that I hear from her more, oh, this is what I did, I'm happy with what I did, because she has sort of the self reflection about the effort she put in rather than the outcome. And I think that's important. And I believe she probably tries things that she's not sure she will be good at because she doesn't risk not being rewarded for the outcome. I mean, I will tell her, oh, you did a good job, because she tried it, not
yeah.
because it was perfectly executed. So that gives her the
Okay.
confidence to try it.
Yes, and that also gives her the permission to fail then,
Exactly.
because she tried, and
Yeah.
then
And that was good in itself.
that was the purpose, not the perfection.
Exactly.
Ah, okay.
And just to add to that, I mean, I think that when you extend it, has an impact on when we come back to entrepreneurship,
Mhm.
because you don't know often the end result, but you have to dare to try to
Yeah.
succeed. And women seeking perfection to a larger extent than men may then self-inhibit in trying because they are not sure of the outcome.
Yeah. And there, if you reward people by the outcome, generally tend to risk less.
Exactly. Yeah.
So the second thing I wanted to double click on is you worked for at PayPal. I consider sort of a financial institution in itself. Um, do you see different mindsets towards money and a more? Do you also see more educational mindset about money in new banks versus old?
In how they support their customers, you mean?
Yes, for instance, but also how they do this internally, how they view the money internally.
And you not sure I
Let's
uh,
first talk about the customer facing side because that's probably the easiest part.
the I mean, if we leave kind of PayPal to the side, but I have conversations with banks now.
Hmm.
I and neobanks and fintech startups and so on. And I definitely see in more recent times, at least, maybe more than the different types of institutions, that there is a lot more focus on education
Uh-huh.
and awareness. I think that has been a big shift recently, and in putting much more effort around financial education at all levels. I mean, there are a lot of initiatives by the banks themselves and by independent third parties, fintech startups, to focus on financial education for kids specifically, for women as well. I mean,
Yeah.
Gimme is one example, working with financial education for kids.
Hmm.
Female Invest is a big, initiative for female financial education and empowerment. And I think that a lot of the other financial institutions are also, supporting that move towards more education.
Hmm.
So I see it, I think, across the board, and I do see a lot of the banks doing, initiatives for the kids as well, the more traditional banks as well. Maybe a bit
Yeah.
slower, but I think, yeah, it's all happening.
Are neobanks quicker at that?
Yes, I definitely think that they are quicker in integrating that.
Is that a matter of legacy that they still have to deal with the old quote unquote systems and programming, whereas neobanks don't have the technological legacy, but also B the let's say mindset legacy.
Yeah, I think it's both for sure. I think that both play a role,
Mhm.
and the mindset for sure as well.
Yeah. So I want to go back to the wealth withinner because you offer a lot in terms of programs already. The basic premise, I think, is about reprogramming the subconscious.
Mhm.
So we talked about the programming that we get,
Yes.
both from upbringing and from education, and also which is being enforced by society. Um, how do you start that reprogramming? Take me through the steps, please.
So really, the base for starting is awareness.
Mm-hmm.
It's becoming aware that you may have a program that quote unquote is not yours. That's something that you have inherited. And that is really, whether we're working with individuals or female founders, that's the starting point, the awareness. And to make sure that you don't just become aware once and then it falls into,
Yeah.
you fall into your old patterns and behaviors. We really encourage regular sort of journaling or other activities to reflect on a continuous basis.
Mhm.
How am I responding when I have financial decisions to make, or when I'm spending? What was my reaction when I had to pay my bills or whatever? Because it's something that is so ingrained. Subconscious programs. It's about 95% of our mind is subconscious, according to various studies. And And so it's something that we do without being aware. So that's
Yeah,
why the
it's on autopilot.
it's on autopilot. That's why the awareness once is important, but the continuous sort of reflection is the key to change it, because
Yeah.
otherwise you fall back into the autopilot. Yeah.
So do you have some sort of mechanism to sort of trigger or prompt people to do that?
Yeah.
Uh,
So, I mean, as I said, what we encourage is, daily or at least weekly reflection on the, and it depends on the individual. What are the, the biggest things that they want to change, but to
mhm.
go back and reflect on their day and or on their week and say, okay, well, how what was the situation? How did I react? How did I feel? How would I like to have responded?
Mhm.
And repeating that again and again, because then you bring it back up from the default pattern to something that you can then actively change.
Okay, so how do you then make that shift to actually changing? Because you're looking back at the situation and you're sort of, let's say, creating the delta between this is how I felt versus this is how I would have liked to have
Yeah.
felt.
Yeah.
How do you help people transition from one to the next?
So as I said, so awareness is the first step.
Yeah.
Reflection back is the
Mm.
second step, and then the third one is then actually being aware in the moment it happens and creating that little bit of space between the action or the situation and the response. And in that space, you can then choose how to respond. Because in the beginning, the situation triggers an automatic reaction.
Yeah.
But through awareness and sort of repetition, you create a space where you can choose how to respond.
Okay, so because you start to recognize the
Yes.
situations,
Yes.
you actually get the sort of, yeah, let's call it permission for you create a permission for yourself to just step back for a second, say, hey, oh, this is that old thing again.
Yeah.
This is what we didn't want,
Yeah.
and then
Now I can choose.
now I can choose.
Yeah.
And then, as a question, I suppose this is a matter of repetition before it becomes the new normal.
Exactly. So it doesn't change overnight. And sometimes, we look at ways to change it over overnight, but I think awareness, repetition are the ways to create lasting change.
Yeah.
Mm.
So, how do your wealth circles fit into this?
So the wealth circles we run with either online or offline on a monthly basis. So
Yeah.
bringing women together to create a space to talk about self-worth, wealth, money. So yeah, so that is where we create the awareness and the safe space for self-reflection. And then between the circles, then the women have the time kind of I guess to practice
Yeah.
and then come back and reflect on, okay, how did it go, how am I behaving differently or not, and share their stories and realize that they are not alone. I mean, a lot of the patterns that we have are similar
Mhm.
between us, because the societal programs are similar, because we live, in the same society.
So, in the end, goal is to help women, especially, to stop seek that external validation part, and to trust their own yeah instincts when it comes to money. Um, what results have you seen so far?
I work quite a lot with solo entrepreneurs, small
Uh-huh.
entrepreneurs. So one thing that I've had feedback from several of them has been that they have been able to change their pricing, and that's, I think, a very concrete
Yeah, tangible.
link between wealth and self worth, or the
Mhm.
fact that you value yourself enough to be able to ask for higher pricing. And yeah, so that's been really, really good to hear. But also when it comes to, managing wealth, so savings, investments, and so on,
Mhm.
which is another big theme where unfortunately women tend to invest less. And that there I've also had feedback where, immediately after a circle, someone wrote to me and said, oh, I actually went back home, I logged into my online trading account, I did a review of my investments,
Mhm.
and I made changes. Because I hear a lot that, oh, I don't really want to look at it, I kind of ignore it, I because we don't feel so confident in investing, for example. So we tend to yeah,
Yeah,
not
avoid
make
it.
an active decision.
Yeah, yeah. The easiest decision is always to just follow the index,
Yeah.
which is, I think, a very good start for at least.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a very good start. But even just to go in and look at it and see, okay, is it going up or down? Sometimes we just choose not to even look, um, which I think is a shame, because then we don't become familiar with what's actually happening, and the fact that we are responsible for at least being aware of our finances.
Okay, because that's interesting. Because I worked for an asset manager for a long time, and I've always been told like most of the investments you do, you just set it and forget it.
Y- Yeah, absolutely. I think that there is good advice in that as well. That you shouldn't be trying to sort of be more clever maybe than the investment, and obviously with compound interest, you're in it for the long term and so on. But that doesn't mean that I think there's a difference between doing that and kind of being confident in that, what in that you've done that, and
Mhm.
and feeling that, oh, I don't want to look at it because it comes from feelings of being afraid or not confident. And I think
Oh,
that, yeah,
does this tie back into the results training that you're rewarded for results
yeah, probably so.
because you're afraid of the result that might not be in line with what you hoped for, expected slash thought it would be, and as a
Yeah, and
result
then
you don't look.
yeah, yeah, I think so. I think that probably there is something around that, like, also taking it personally. Then I did not do well because I did this. So yeah,
Because it was my decision to invest in this fund or this company and it didn't perform as well. I feel
yeah,
less good and as a result less confident. Oh, it's interesting. I'm starting to recognize a couple of patterns in my own head, by the way.
yeah.
Just for context of listeners,
Yes.
my mind is
Yeah.
racing right now.
Okay.
So I have a question about the investment part and the more risky part, because I think you've also been a VC in venture capital.
No, I just work as an advisor, and we were so advising entrepreneurs, and then we work on the VC side with VC companies. But myself, no.
Oh, okay. So you're more an advisor on
Yeah,
both ends.
yeah.
But I'm going to ask the question then differently. How do we get more women to invest in, let's say, more risky asset classes like startups? Because trying to form my own thoughts on this. I was wondering how you look at it.
I think there are two things. No, there are probably more than that. But one is, of course, as around risk, women tend to be more risk conscious. I would like to use the word
Yeah.
conscious instead of averse. But
Women are not less risk averse than men. They can be more risk taking, but they need more information.
yeah, and so I think that is, part of then how do you, create situations that the women feel that they are in a position to take that risk.
Mhm.
I think it's also, I mean, I would like to split split it also because I think that ownership is very important, and being aware that through ownership we can impact the world.
Yeah.
So obviously there's the VC and the more institutional way to invest and own, but there's also, as individuals or angel investors, you don't have to have a huge amount of capital to own. uh, and there again it comes back, I think, a little bit to the self-worth, feeling confident that I have the capability and also the right to own and impact through ownership. And so we encourage. I mean, step one is investing, through the stock market and so on. Step two, I think, is angel consortiums and so on to for normal women to have more possibilities to invest. And then step three is then working, as we said, from early, encouraging women at university and early in their careers to see the opportunity to also work in these businesses, as VCs in the investment industry. And there are initiatives at the university level and entry level to encourage more women to become investors.
Okay. So how do you look at the whole theme of women investing in women for the purposes of increasing the amount of money that is invested in female-led startups?
Yeah, I think that obviously we want everyone to invest in everyone
Yeah.
in general. But I do think that in many cases, women investing in women, and women, female investors investing in female founded companies, there can be a good synergy because of the types of companies that women tend to be maybe more overrepresented when it comes to impact businesses, femtech and female health,
Health,
which
yeah.
is a growing industry and a very important industry. And so
Mm.
if women tend to invest with maybe a little bit more heart, then there's a nice fit there with actually impacting the world and supporting those businesses to thrive by investing.
Is it also in part reducing, because I've had this discussion with my girlfriend, and she said, well, I'm not that rich, so I don't have a bulkload of money lying around, but I would like to make a difference with. But then I'm sort of limited to, let's say, smaller ticket sizes. My question is, do you think smaller ticket sizes are a good idea?
Yeah, I think because I think their community comes in to play.
Mhm.
So, investing as a angel consortium or
Mhm.
pooling your investments, investment clubs. There are different ways to invest, even if you don't have a lot of money. Of course, very easily on the through an investment app. But even if you want to do direct investments into companies, working with other experienced or less experienced angel investors is a good way to create a little bit more impact by pooling together resources.
Mhm.
I think those are models, from Africa as well. I don't remember what the real name is, but the investing clubs in rural societies where women tend to work together to support each other with investments within the community, is a good example of that as well.
Oh, that I didn't know about. I think there's quite a bit to learn about how to make that work.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I want to move a bit towards the future. Let's say the wealth within her becomes wildly successful, and you manage to educate a lot of women on taking control of their own finances and control of their own self worth. What will have changed in 2032 if you reach that goal?
I think women own their definitions of wealth,
Hmm.
and wealth goes beyond financial measures. So it's around, well, impact, time, etc. I think that is an something that will have changed. The t-shirts slogans on girls' t-shirts will not, tell them to smile, but to invest and explore and be bold and brave. But I think it's really about owning our own definitions of wealth, because when you own it and believe it for yourself, then you have the power to make decisions that align with your own beliefs.
Okay. And for female founders, do you see their opportunities?
Yeah, so similarly, it's about you know the inner confidence and inner self belief,
Mhm.
and I believe that the way founders and the investment ecosystems communicate will have also changed, so that someone pitching with a certain style is not in itself a guarantee for investment or not, but that we have more openness to different communication styles and so on, and so that the ideas and the founders have the ability to shine through, even if they don't fit what is the traditional mold now of a founder.
Yeah, and then VCs also have to start looking at, like, if it's not a white
Ah,
guy,
yeah.
maybe he can be capable or she can be
Yeah,
capable.
yeah, yeah. But I think there it's like, confidence doesn't not automatically mean competence, and the other way around, because we have different ways of being and different communication styles and expression, and there has to be more acceptance of that.
Ah, okay. Thanks. That's an interesting one to turn it around, because I was more like, okay, the bias is on the we know that white guys can deliver, so we invest in white guys because that's
Yeah.
what the way it has always been. But it's more what I'm hearing you say. It's more nuanced on communication style, confidence, and
Yeah, I mean, yes, white guys have delivered because they are the only ones who've had the chance. But also, we know that not all white guys deliver, but they sound confident, and therefore they get the
yeah,
money anyway. Sometimes.
yeah, they get away with a lot of BS.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm on a mission to make diversity in tech and inclusion in tech, especially the new normal, by the end of 2032. Based on your experience, what is a bold move that we can all take?
So I've talked a lot about awareness, but I think to take that even further, if measuring, tracking, and incentivizing those who are already leading in tech based on what we've talked about. So based on um, the fact that women and men still tend to behave differently. I think that can have a real impact. Just one example is, for example, we talked about negotiating salaries and so on. But if you don't, change the job descriptions to attract more women, and know and are aware of the fact that women will apply for a job if they meet 100% of the job criteria, but a guy will apply if he meets 60,
Mhm.
then you're going to exclude women if your job description looks a certain way. So yeah, being aware of that, but also tracking then how are you actually performing on that will make a big difference, I think.
Yeah, true. And how do we how can I incentivize women without making it about the results? So more
Yeah.
recognizing them for the effort.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the again the example with the job descriptions, encouraging women to apply even if they don't meet 100% of the job criteria. That's you know rewarding them for the effort of applying, not for being a perfect match. But they need to be aware that they don't have to have the results from the beginning to be considered, you know, a good match, for example.
That's absolutely a strong point to finish on. Catrine Rhenberg, thank you very much for an amazing conversation. if people want to learn more about you and the wealth within her, where can they find that?
So Instagram, LinkedIn, Spotify, and our own website is all at thewealthwithinher.com. So
Okay.
very easy to
There's
find.
there's also a podcast.
There's also a podcast. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
So we'll link to that in the show notes. So again, thank you very much for the conversation. Really enjoyed it. And listeners, thank you very much for listening. And until the next episode, keep being awesome. Well, that's a wrap for episode 114 of Women Disrupting Tech with Catrine Rhenberg, titled How the Wealth Within Her Empowers Women's Finances and Self-Worth. Catrine and I hope that you found our conversation as empowering and motivating as we intended it to be. And if you have any questions for Catrine, please leave them in the comments on Spotify, Apple, or YouTube. I'll make sure you'll receive an answer. When you want to connect with Catrine or learn more about the wealth within her, please check out the links in the show notes. As usual, you can find the show notes at womendisruptingtech.blog, and the link is also in the description. And if you're a woman and you're done playing small with your money, please check out their program, The Wealth Shift. It starts in September. And of course, that link is also in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving a rating or a review on Apple or Spotify. Leaving a rating or a review helps new listeners find the podcast and supports my guests by giving them a bigger platform. If you're a regular listener, please make sure you follow Women Disrupting Tech on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, or YouTube. Following is a simple, zero cost way to support Catrine and my other guests in making inclusion in tech the new normal by the end of 2032. For more about Women Disrupting Tech, please follow the podcast on social media. You can find us everywhere as at Women Disrupting Tech. If you're looking for in-depth stories and behind-the-scenes insights from each episode, I've got you covered. Head over to Substack. There you'll also find the trends that I've spotted across 100 plus conversations that I've had so far. So don't forget to subscribe to my Substack for more Women Disrupting Tech. Finally, if you want to connect with me, you can do so via email dirkjan at womendisruptingtech.blog, or you can connect on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, simply search for my name. You'll find me and send me a connection request. With that, I wish you a wonderful day. I hope to see you in the next episode. And until then, as always, keep being awesome.